a mess. Sorry that this video is going up late. I literally forgot that it's Book Review Friday, that I had to do a video today. I completely spaced it, and so I am filming it now when I should be editing. Today, as the title says, I am talking about Brother Band number 5, which is Scorpion Mountain by John Flanagan. Now, to read this, you must have read Ranger's Apprentice. Maybe not all of it, but you need to know who Gillen is. And he's not in the first few. You need to have read all 4 of the Brother Band books in order to read this. Did I love this? Absolutely. 5 out of 5 stars. And the reason it was so good, in case you did see my review of book 4, The Slaves of Socorro, I talked about how it was really predictable. And the main reason is the inside flap on the hardcovers or on the paperbacks. The back. It is incredibly spoilery. It gives 75% of the plot away. It's really, really frustrating that they do that. Just because it's middle grade doesn't mean you should give anything away. You shouldn't. You should say something very, very brief, and instead they reveal something that isn't revealed until page 50. They explain what's going to happen all the way up to this point. That's boring. I hate that. They did that with Scorpion Mountain. I read the synopsis, and it completely spoiled the whole book, and I didn't enjoy it as much. I thought it was fun. I thought the characters were great, but I didn't enjoy it as much. Don't read the flap. You can read number 1, The Outcasts, and not be spoiled. You can read the first few of the Ranger's Apprentice series, and you're not gonna get spoiled. In fact, I would say all of Ranger's Apprentice doesn't give it away, but all of Brother Band is being given away except for the first one. And it's really, really annoying how they do that. And I just, so just go in blind, trust John Flanagan, just start it off, see if you like it, and just know each book gets better and better. That's what I say to those who have not read this. Goodbye to you. I am sorry. This is going to be spoilery. It's also going to be off the top of my head, so we'll see how it goes. Let's get started. Now, the characters are hilarious. I love that. My favorite book of Ranger's Apprentice is number 4, Battle for Scandia. It's because the Araluen and the Scandians are very, very different. The Scandians are hilarious. If you've read these, then you know that. They are hilarious. They are so, so funny. They are just great people and a load of fun to read. The Araluen, however, are British. Stiff upper lip and all that, kind of very formal, and they have their way to do things. One of the things that's amusing is that Holt is very much not like that, and this is a spoiler for those who haven't read up to Kings of Clonmel, which I think is number 8, but yeah, that's because Holt is not Araluen. Spoiler alert! Yeah, he's not Araluen, and so that's why. He doesn't believe in the whole stiff upper lip. And the Scandians for sure don't believe that. They believe in getting drunk and bashing people's heads in if they bother them and stuff. And they're so funny. And so the Araluen working with Scandians is really, really fun. My favorite scene for sure has to be when Duncan is meeting with Stig, Thorn, and Hal. And Thorn and Duncan butt heads, because they're both very set in their ways, and it's just, it's so funny. It's so funny. I couldn't call the plot all that much. I'm looking at some of the things that I wrote, and one of the things that I wrote is that they mentioned, what if there's a password? And I went, I bet there is a password since it's mentioned. Well, there actually wasn't. And that's kind of nice, because especially in middle grade, when they mention things like that, that's completely true. Another thing that I like is Hal, his kindness. Coming from Ranger's Apprentice, I already knew that King Duncan, he could threaten torture all he wanted, but he doesn't torture. But Hal hadn't really been put into that position. And so while he's perfectly willing to beat the snake's knot out of somebody if they won't give information, he also is actually very kind. And some people might say, well, he is half Araluen, but he's been raised Scandian. There's a point where they're helping slaves who are being forced to row. You know, like Ben-Hur, where he was chained down and had to row on a Roman ship as punishment for something he didn't do. But they asked the rowers to help them. They were like, we'll need you to get us to this place, and if you get us there, you're free to go. We won't need you anymore, but we just need you to pretend to be slaves. We're not going to hit you. We're not going to starve you. We're going to treat all your wounds and everything. And one of the rowers goes, what if we say no? And they're like, fine, then we won't help you. And Hal thinks, in fact, this is the actual read from the book on page 195 in hardback. In fact, it wasn't a threat that Hal would carry through. If necessary, they'd show Ishvana behind the Heron to the rendezvous point on the coast. Once there, they'd have plenty of men to row the ship to Tarbak, but it would take time, and Hal knew this. The sooner they got to Tarbak, the better. And I like that Hal establishes himself, no, we will help you even if you won't help us, which is really kind of cool, especially because nowadays in both middle grade, but especially young adult, we're getting more badass characters, but they aren't so badass as they just are cruel. There's a difference between being tough and badass and fair, and Hal, I do feel, is pretty darn badass, and he's incredibly fair. And you can do both. One of the things about Scorpion Mountain that I love is John Flanagan can write battles. In like the last book, Slaves of Sakura wasn't there, and there was a big gap between when I read Slaves of Sakura and when I read book 3, The Hunters. In The Hunters and in The Invaders, there are battles, and whether it is on land or sea, John Flanagan has a way of writing things so that you completely picture the battle. And that's something very few authors have that ability. Tolkien was confusing as hell, unless you've actually, you know, looked at a map of what Helm's Deep looked like. I remember Battle of Helm's Deep was confusing. Battle of the Pelennor Fields was pretty easy because there was a bunch of fields surrounding a city, and that's it. All took place on the fields, so there wasn't different places mentioned. But John Flanagan, you know, we have a ravine, and then there's this wall, and then there's this other place, and da-da-da-da-da, and all these different pieces of the land, and it's not so confusing like it is with Tolkien or even C.S. Lewis. He gives away nothing. I can't picture the battle at all. He is so dull in his battles. But John Flanagan, it is perfect. It's like I'm watching the movie, and it's just crystal clear, and I love it. And he also is realistic in battle. 3 men go up a ladder, 1 survives. The other 2 die right there. And the dude who went up the ladder, was he injured? Yes. Yes, he was. That's how it is. His people aren't immortal. His people, well, he's not going to kill them off. He has yet to do that. His people don't feel immortal because he keeps it pretty darn realistic. Another thing is when they're on cavalry to get to the wall. And the reason they're on cavalry is because there's this large portion of open ground that they need to cross as quick as possible. So as few people die. Do a lot of people die before they reach the wall? Yes. Yes, there are people who die. Do a lot of people die when they reach the wall? Yes. Yes, a lot of people die. But I also loved that they didn't just run there in a straight line. You never do that. You never do that if you are under fire. You zigzag so people can't predict your moves. In fact, some people are saying that now in schools, kids are being taught that in case there is a shooting at a school, to zigzag. Don't just run down the hall away from the guy. Zigzag, zigzag, and don't just zag from one wall to the other wall, even in a hallway. Make it different angles and stuff. And he has them do that. And I don't read about that kind of thing, and it was so refreshing. I also love that one of the reasons that they kept the horses is they didn't let the horses go. One, because their horses would die, but they kept the horses because they were in a desert, and so the earth is very dry, and so the horses, just by walking around and maneuvering around while the men are setting up the ladders to go up this wall, was creating dust. That is ingenious. Ingenious. John Flanagan, you are a genius, man. You know battles so well, and I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I also like that we are seeing something that still happens today all the time. That was a big deal back in the day, and yet in modern stories with villains, they don't talk about it, and it is brainwashing. This was a big problem in the 70s and 80s. My parents talked about it because I watched. It's rated R, so I don't actually recommend this for anybody, but if you don't mind boobs and lots of blood, Conan the Barbarian, the villain brainwashes at least several thousand people, at least 10,000 people. He brainwashes them and destroys them, and he turns children against their parents and gets them to commit murder and stuff, and it's all brainwashing. And one of the things in here is that the Scorpion cult, they brainwash themselves, and you have to be willing to commit murder to join, but you're basically brainwashed into, like, you don't care about good versus evil and stuff. And there was a certain line that was hilarious. I can see why they need to be drugged, Stig murmured. That is a seriously ugly person. Once again, Scanians. So polite. But I like that we got to see that. One of my favorite parts is the man that led the charge, the Wakir Selethin. He's a soldier, but he is, you know, a political leader also when necessary. And so he's in this mound of paperwork of rebuilding this city where all the politicians and all the leaders were killed off. The people only survived, some of them, not everybody survived and stuff. And so they are rebuilding this city. And so there's a lot of paperwork. And the moment Hal, Gillen, and the others walk in, he glares at this mass of paper littering his desk and, quote, he shoved the lot onto the floor and glared at one of his secretaries. I I love that. And it also showed, you know, he is a soldier first and foremost. I really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were good. The battles were phenomenal. Whether, again, there were some fighting at sea and stuff, and the sailing is very clear. Always at the beginning of these, he has sailing terms explained, which I like. Also, he has a picture of the ship, the Heron, which is not the way Scandian ships normally look, so you can understand what they're talking about. And then at the end, they have something called the Land Sailor, which is a real thing, but they have to create it and build it, and it was a little confusing to picture, and I remember thinking, why isn't there a Land Sailor right after that? It's at the back. Here's the Land Sailor. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to see more. The next thing that we're going to get from John Flanagan is Ranger's Apprentice, Hal's story. I forgot what the name of it is. It's on the screen right now. I didn't do any work. I literally walked into my room and almost got ready and looked at my book and went, ah! I'm so excited for that. Good luck with your reading, and I hope to see you in the next video on Monday. Goodbye! I pointed to that one. That's number 1. Whatever. And I read the summary. That's what it's called. The synopsis. That's what it's called. To bark, the better. I can't say that word. To bark. To bork. To brock. Brock sounds better than bork. Okay. Anyway, which is rated R. I said that already. What's his name? They have a picture. They have, well, that's kind of spoilery, but, well, I am spoiling you. Anywho, confusing myself. Can you tell I have no script? Leave that video, I'm not blurry. Okay, smile.